Critics have estimated the turnout at 5,000. We were estimating at 7,000 at the beginning, so I suspect 2,000 are ensconced in the many pubs that we passed along the route. It's not about just driving them away from our streets. It's about challenging and exposing their myths and their lies and their filth, which is to engender fear in ordinary working people. We need to demonstrate our vision of the type of Britain we want. Diverse, equal and united. To divide people in work to those out of work. People claiming benefits to those not claiming benefits. The issues of immigration to create a fear and a concern in the hope that they will go from. Don't worry, colleagues, I'm coming to the general strike. Or maybe not. Comrades, here's the point. Here's the truth about what we are standing for. Our rejection of violence and division. Our message of hope, not hate, is a message of unity. We are stronger together. Our values, our beliefs will make for a better and safer Britain. Comrades, stay strong.
Colleagues.
Happening in the mainstream who provide the mood music, because the 1% are scared of the 99% getting organised and united, which is what the trade union movement do. The Jewish people went through this in the 1930s. The African Caribbean people went through this in the 50s and 60s. And coming from Birmingham, I know how the Irish community have been through it for decades and decades.
Stop shouting something about boys that he doesn't feel safe enough to walk around.
You fucking idiot.
And now I know why.
Someone overpoints like that, you're
Why
out
about
of order.
that?
Working class socialism against fascism!
The other thing I want to say is it's absolutely trying to explain what's going on.
I'm not even with them, I've just watched you do it. You fucking big bully.
He's standing up and he says he's all and I think the truth is,
Nobody came up to me because they knew he could have a swing. That's what.
with this message that we should be divided.
You should listen to your fucking
But we should stand up to UKIP. I tell you something else about banking They sold off the post office the other day. And what they said, big institutions want to make sure the price of things are terrible. So that's why.
Yeah, you were before, though. You were before when you're looking at me because you knew you could have a go. Because you knew you could have a go.
Being fascist now. Turn around and say immigrants should
I've heard that loads of times.
Stop blaming people that come here to work and say that they are to blame. We should stand together in unity against...
Working class people aren't allowed a voice.
The other thing I want to say is that we've defeated parts of the BNP when they've stood. I think that the question of Tommy Robinson, actually not his real name, Steve woman right in the wheelchair,
And I get no
the point is that they tell lies in order to divide us.
That's what I don't get out.
Lies in our
And you
unity.
play your
That's
fucking
why you help
put things into reality.
That's why Unite called Unite. That's why
Unemployed,
the teachers
caring,
stand up and
looking
speak
after a
out.
disabled woman, getting fuck all from you guys. And you're supposed to be there united for us.
Say that the only way that we can beat these people is we stand together, united. But across the sea, when you see Jobbik, he's standing in that position.
Yeah, why are you all standing there? Why are you all standing there? Just go off somewhere else.
Jack Jones spoke at our conference and he said we have a tradition. He said that tradition is Cambridge Street. And I believe that tradition is
Whatever you do, don't be working class
fascism. And breaking
allowed.
and saying that you will not divide us and we will get rid of you. And that's why I want to end up with. Thank you for demonstrating. Let's keep the fight up.
There's two sorts of robbery in the world. We have wholesale robbery and killing and thieving, and that's done by governments and corporations. And the people we meet in jail, unfortunately, aren't in there for heroically rebelling against capitalism. They're in there for mimicking it, okay? So the EDL and the BNP are merely mimicking the British government who's done away with habeas corpus. It's mainstream torture, and that's where the real fascism is coming from. These boneheads from the EDL and BNP are like the Boy Scouts of fascism. Fascism is coming down the pipe.
So I call on Taj Maham to talk. Taj.
We've got the most timid generation.
Yeah. Comrades, greetings.
Yeah. What do you mean by what does that mean?
Grateful to you and so grateful to
of the anti-fascist and the workers' movement. Last week in Greece, we had an assembly, and we invited some movements to join us in a discussion, also from fascism. So we are moving to call a European and international day against the neo-Nazis and the fascists on 22 of March. We want that day, all Europe, all the planet,
from some kind of historical perspective,
mobilize against the threat of fascists. We say never again. We don't want again to see what happened in the 30s. We have a powerful workers' movement. We have a powerful anti-fascist movement, and we want to see all the faces of the neo-Nazis with chains. And this is the power of our movement. The victory is ours. We will not let them in the parliament, in the city councils, in the unions, in our streets. Our streets belong to the people who are working, and the working people want freedom and democracy. No more fascists. We don't accept them. We will win them.
Some of our people in work said, I didn't elect you to look after things like that. And I said, if you elected me to think that I was going to perpetuate a racism in the employment of postal workers, you've elected the wrong guy. So we say this, Ed Miliband, party leaders, all party leaders, you need to take a stand against racism, and yes, it will be a difficult fight.
Colleagues, our next speaker is not only a member of Unite, but also a member of Liverpool City Council. And I call upon Anna Rodri to come up and speak. Anna.
I'm probably one of the smallest speakers as well here today. Because I live here today, and a member of Unite, a proud member of Unite, and a member of Liverpool City Council, Labour Councillor for Liverpool. I'd just like to say that my experience of racism in this city has been a long-standing experience. We've fought off the masses over many, many years. We've done everything that we could do in order to make sure that our equality issues. We're glad that the unions get behind us and support us. We're glad that Liverpool City Council has made a commitment to stand alongside and to make massive changes in the city. And we look forward to new and better times ahead, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
For a long, long time, but comrades, the fight isn't just against the fascists. We have to stand up for progressive politics. We have to be clear that what we stand for are the things that our communities stand for. 50 years ago, there was a big march on Washington in the United States, and people stood around and listened to a magnificent speech by Martin Luther King that talked about his dream. What's often forgotten about that speech is another part of it which talked about the fierce urgency of now. And there is a fierce urgency of now, because it is not right that in this day and age, in 2013, in this country, for the very first time since the Second World War, that the Red Cross is having to collect food for people in this country. It is not right that our people have to resort to food banks in this day and age. And you know what's even worse than that? What's even worse than people having to go to food banks is that food banks are having to say to people, we're not even going to give you food that you have to warm up because we know that you can't afford to heat the food. That's what people are faced with right now, a choice between eating and heating. And frankly, that is not the sort of society that we have to live in right now. So we have to stand up for progressive politics. We have to dismiss these fascists from our shores. We must remove these people from wherever they are, because what they do is they get into our communities, they get into our workplaces, they divide us against each other, they start to blame the homeless, they start to blame the black community, they start to blame the lesbians and gays, they start to blame the disabled, they start to blame you if you got one more room than you should have. This is outrageous, comrades. We must stand together, we must stand up. Thank you so much for listening. Good luck.
Northwest and in Liverpool in particular, multiracial, loud, lively, creative, cultural city. This is what we want cities to look like. I'm very pleased to be here today on behalf of the NUT, but also as a Unite member myself. Ever more important that we stand in solidarity to confront racism, fascism, Islamophobia, to confront the politics of hate perpetrated by the EDL, the BNP, and of course by the Daily Mail themselves. I spoke last week at a rally outside their offices. I was going to wear my Hated by the Daily Mail t-shirt, but frankly I thought that would have been a statement of the bleeding obvious, so I went for something else instead. The attempts to divide us against each other on the basis of race or religion or anything else, any other perceived or real differences, these must stop. I represent teachers. And teachers in the NUT at least see their mission to ensure that children and young people are themselves equipped to challenge prejudice, to challenge stereotyping, to challenge myths and lies wherever they are perpetrated, and to foster unity. We here today, we know what a good society looks like. We know that we need a society based on social justice, not scapegoating, on freedom and fairness, and not on fabrications created by some sections of society. Large numbers of children are frankly living in abject conditions. They're worried about whether they will even have a roof over their head because of the bedroom tax. And our Secretary of State for Education, when people have gone to the extent of setting aside their pride and self-confidence to go to a food bank because that's the only way they can put a meal on the table, he goes almost as far as saying that's a lifestyle choice. It's frankly disgraceful. So what we need to do is, against this background, stand together. Stand together against those who would divide us. The trade union movement knows which policies would do away with austerity Britain. We know which policies would do away with racism, with fascism, and would see off the likes of the EDL, and to secure a free and fair society. Be proud today that you are here, but never, ever, ever stop educating, agitating, and organising. The right wing cannot divide us if we stand strong. These are our streets, our schools, our communities. We welcome all anti-racists and anti-fascists, from Liverpool to Tower Hamlets in London, from Bradford to Luton, the original home of the EDL. We welcome all who stand against the EDL, Nick Griffin, or any of their ilk. No pasarán, they shall not pass.
No pasarán.
Colleagues, our next speaker also is from an organisation that fights vehemently against fascists. He supports the right team.
Comrades, brothers and sisters, it's an absolute privilege to be with you here today. Proud to bring greetings and solidarity on behalf of the TUC, and proud to be part of this wonderful mobilisation against racism and fascism. And our message today, loud and clear, to the BNP, to the EDL, to the far-right folks, is get off our streets and get out of our communities. Now, just over 70 years ago, both of my granddads came to Liverpool for the first time, driven, like so many others, by the turmoil of the Second World War. My granddad Jimmy was a Chinese merchant navyman who left Hong Kong, left his family behind, to come and start a new life in Liverpool. My granddad Joe was an engineer with the Polish RAF, a man who, like thousands, tens of thousands of others, left behind his homeland engulfed by fascism to carry on the fight against the Nazis here in Britain today. He stayed in Liverpool, he raised his family in Liverpool and was proud to call Liverpool his home. And it's men and women like Jimmy, like Joe, like tens of thousands of other people who came from every corner of the world to this city that make this city special, make it different and make it strong and make it proud. Black and white, Jewish and Muslim, Hindus and Sikhs, Protestants and Catholics, whatever your background, wherever you came from, this country is under attack, suffering the shocks of the economic crisis and the horrors of this rotten government with its attacks on the welfare state, the selling off of our family silver, the attacks on communities up and down this country. And now is the time to stand together. Now is the time to stand together against those who would divide and bring us apart. And our job is simple, to represent all working people, wherever they came from, whatever the colour of their skin, whether they were born here or whether they were new to these shores. And we've heard already today, there is absolutely no room for complacency. Just over the Pennines in Bradford, our most multicultural city, what's left of the EDL is marching through the town. Earlier this summer, the British government sent vans around London with the slogan, "Go home," sending a message to immigrants, a shameful message that hasn't been heard in this country since the National Front. And for months we've had a debate about immigration dominated by lies, by half-truths and by myths. So isn't it time that all of Britain's politicians and the British government changed their tune about migration and told the truth?
Unless you know members of our, you're not necessarily going to know what